So I transferred my muslin to my dot paper the same exact way I did here. So I punched, I used a pin to punch through wherever, let's pretend this is it. All the same intersections. The ends of each dart, the vanishing point of each dart, side seam intersections, underarm intersections, mid-armhole, and so on. Just the exact same way. And I went in and I started to draw a few lines, but I left the ones that are a little bit different undone so that you can see where we are with this. Okay, so the first one is this waist dart. Okay, I know what my dart placement measurement is. I'm going to verify that dart placement measurement. I'm going to make sure that my mark is in the right place. I know what my dart intake is supposed to be. What's it supposed to be?
1.5.
1.5 inches. So I'll verify that amount, make sure it's still good. I'm going to find the halfway point between those two dart leg ends. And so half of 1 1/4 is 3/4. And I have a punch hole there. You know, I used my push pin and I put a pin mark there. But I verify it just in case. Sometimes my pin marks are a little bit off here or there. Now the center of this dart is going to be on grain. So from that center back line, I'm going to measure over the distance between center back and the center of my dart. Whatever that measurement is, mine's 3 3/4, but whatever yours needs to be. Measure over that same distance just below the armhole and put a mark. So I've now connected those marks with a straight line. So I now have a parallel line for the center of my dart parallel with the center back. Okay. Now we talked about that the back dart is going to vanish 1/2 inch below that armhole intersection. So I'm going to verify that. I have a mark here where my dart was supposed to end from my drape, but I'm going to verify that. So I'm going to square my ruler from center back, and I'm going to move it up and down until the ruler is 1/2 inch below that armhole intersection there. And I'm going to say, yep, there's my vanishing point level. Okay, it happens to be where my punch hole is. Great. If it's not, fix it. Okay. So I'm going to draw in my dart legs. So this is the same truing that we did on our muslin. We're just doing it again on paper just to verify. Now any fixes that you'll be doing on the paper are going to be really minute and fine. And all those little fixes are going to lead towards a really good pattern. Right, so I've written in here what my dart placement measurement is. I went and I checked in my book and I checked on the form and I figured out what my waist arc is. And I've written it down here so I don't have to keep checking it. So I've written my waist arc plus my 1/4 inch ease should be 6 5/8. Okay, I can either measure one side of the dart and measure the other, or I can fold up my dart and measure it all at once to verify that measurement. I know I have to fold up my dart anyway to draw that waistline, right? So I'm folding the dart leg that's closest to the center, folding it to match up with the other side. That'll put my dart allowance, my dart intake going towards the center back. Take my dart shut. Okay, I can true in and draw in my waistline at this point. And I've already gone in, notice I've already squared my intersections off, so this is just a connecting the dots sort of thing. Okay, so I've blended that all out. Now I want to verify that it's the measurement I want. Oops, start with 0, that'd be good. So I want to be at 6 5/8, and mine is a little bit big. So I'm going to take mine in a little bit right here. So it's not a lot, but it's a little bit, and I want this to match my skirt, so I'm going to fix it. So I'm going to trust that my armhole's still good. At this new point, I'm going to connect that waist to that underarm mark. I was cocky and I put in my seam allowance. I'm going to redraw my seam allowance in now. Okay, and I know I'll now cut on this line and not that one because I've made a fix. While this is still taped, what should I do?
Cut it.
Mark in my seam allowance, then cut.
Oh, just
Okay, so with it marked, okay, now I can untape this. Now this gets sewn to this, right? I want to make sure they're the same length seam. So I'm going to fold the seam allowance on one on the front. I'm going to match up the waistline and see if the underarm intersection matches up. If it doesn't match up, figure out which one's more correct and square a new line across. Okay, so I'm not matching up cut seam allowances, I'm matching up the actual seam line itself. So we're just going to kind of go through and verify each length as we go.
so
So whatever this length is here on the front side seam needs to match the back length. I call this walking patterns.
so the front is the master.
I'm going to say it is.
Okay.
If I started with the back, I'd make my back master.
Okay.
If they're different, you still have to figure out which one's more accurate. And the best way to find out which one's more accurate, if they're different, is I would go back here and measure what that distance is from here to here. Okay? But chances are, since we've already gone through this process in the muslin, this should be pretty close. Okay? So if it isn't, we're going to make any adjustments at the underarm mark. Okay? So I've used my French curve, I've drawn in my armhole, I've already cut out that allowance, but do you see how I left some paper there just in case? If when I got to this point, if when I lined these up, they were different, if I have some extra scrap paper there, I have the ability to fix it. If for whatever reason I had already cut this out and I found out that this is too low, what I would do is I would tape on a piece of paper there. This is a rough draft. It's okay to have stuff taped on and added to. It's okay to redline it and edit it. This is our rough draft. Okay? So I'm now safe cutting this out. I checked it, it worked. Okay, I'm okay now cutting my side seam, and I better do it now before I forget which one is the right line, right? Now the shoulder. So I had pin marks where my dart is supposed to be. I want to verify that that's still just 1/2 inch. Okay, I'll draw in the lines. And then I'm going to fold that dart shut so that the allowance is going towards the center back. Now with this dart folded and taped shut, that's when I draw the shoulder seam. Okay. And the shoulder seam is a straight line. So you're going to match up your first mark to your second mark at the neck and draw over the dart legs.